Good morning, Shavua Tov, everyone. Good morning. The learning this month is sponsored by Moshe and Eva Kesselman. By Moshe and Eva Kesselman, B'schut all the Chayalim protecting Am Yisrael. In the week, there's a lot. This is a very inspiring list to read over here. The week is being sponsored by Rabbi David and Ilana Singer, in memory of David's mother, Celia Singer, Rabbanit Tzil Basar Rav Eliyahu. By David and Helene Brenner, remembered in the merit and protection of Tovia Reuven ben Chaya Hadassah, was proudly serving in Gaza. By Tova Dominance, in memory of Tova's father, Melvin Stern, Moshe Eliezer ben David, Zichron Livracha. By my in-laws, Ben and Bar Veselski, in honor of Tiferet and Liva's birthdays and our anniversary. Baruch Hashem. By Zev and Jody Stender for their first name of Fega Golda Bastova. By Sandra Hersko in memory of her husband Gabriel Hersko. Rafal Tzvi ben Yaakov Nechemia Zal in his first year. I can't believe it. When's the first year? Is Marilyn here? When's the first year? I can't believe it. Wow. And by the Schultz and Rosen families in memory of Rosa Bat Itamar on her second year, which I just be way beyond me. Those of you that have the pages from last time, you could take them out. If you have the Sefer, go open up again on page Pevav. But those that need it, these are handouts from last week, because we have to mashlim a few things over there, and that I'm not giving out yet because I'm not sure we're going to get to it. It's this, and we have to pay really close attention today. Okay, mamash, like to focus as much as possible. So again, we're on Daf Pevav. Again, I wanted to say Yesher Koach for coming, because I keep on saying this, Lo Muvan Me'elav, it's not so clear, it's very, very special. I want to say Yesher Koach to everyone for coming. Thank you. What we began learning last week is calling out exactly the two shlavim of Geula, Pekida and Zechira. Pekida, the way we understood Pekida, will be that there will come a time that there's going to be a tremendous movement towards physically coming to Eretz Yisrael and building the land. That we more or less have experienced over the last 75 years, actually even more, because the Aliyah with the Yeshuva Yashan, Yeshuva Chadash, is happening. That's a period for kimat even 100 years, Mashu Kazan. But now, this work that's on us right now is the shlav of the Zechira, Alavai, Imritz Hashem. What we're going to learn, the shlav of Zechira, is when each of us become Anashim Pnimiyim, learning Pnimiyos, being Pnimi, being inside people. Just a word of introduction. On a trip that I had the privilege of going on with Rav Weinberger to Poland, which was approximately, like 6 or 7 years ago, I don't remember exactly, but like about 6 or 7 years ago, someone came up to me on the bus and he said to me, "So when did you start learning Pnimius Torah?" And it hit me as such a shock, because I never realized that there's something called learning Chitzonius Torah. Like, I never understood that. I never looked at any word of Chazal as Chitzoni, outside, versus Pnimi. I never understood. I understood what he was asking me, but I never thought to myself that anyone approaches any type of learning as being outside versus inside learning. If it's Dvar Hashem, if it's the word of Hashem, how could you compare any word of Hashem to the way that you read a book on sociology or geography? That's chitzoni learning. There's nothing pnimius, like Rav Shlomo always said. You ever see a geology professor close his book at the end of class and give it a kiss? Right? So every time we close a sefer, we give it a kiss. That must mean that we're dealing with something that's much more pnimi, that's much more inside. Nachon? So one of the effects of galut, one of the effects of exile, is when we start learning pnimi like chitzoni. When we start learning Torah like a subject, as opposed to kihem chayenu v'orech yameinu, that my life literally depends on it. So we came back home to Eretz Yisrael, and we've been building, hopefully, Bezrat Hashem, we've been building Eretz Yisrael and continue to build Eretz Yisrael. And now, where we're at right now couldn't be clearer in our lives, especially since Simchas Torah, is that the way that we daven, the way that we learn, the way that we think about mitzvot, the way we give over Shabbos to our children, has to continue to be in the manner that we've been speaking about in this shir for so many years already, that it has to be pnimi. It has to be inside. It has to be inside. We have to understand what that means. Now, one of the people, and this is just mind-blowing, one of the people that understood that Geula is this multi-leveled thing, right? It's 2 levels. Everyone looks like they're freezing. You want to turn down the air, just a little bit, because we don't want to also start schwitzing. Not too much. I'm fine, but this is not a mensch here. So. All right, let's say it again more. To be able to look at someone and look at them and you say, well, would you call them a Pkida Jew or a Zechira Jew? You look at a whole generation up until now, and what would you call them? You wouldn't even put them in the category of Pkida or Zechira.
What do those 2 words mean?
The 2 levels of redemption we've been talking about. Right. What would you say? You wouldn't even put them in the category of Pkida or Zechira Jews. What would you say about them? Kofrim. Heretics. Heretics. Then what happens if someone that looks like the Kohen Gadol looks at these types of people and doesn't call them that per se? Because he looks at them and he says, wait a second, yesh po mashu yoter gadol, there's something bigger going on. So what do you call a person like that? Well, he has a name. His name is Rav Avram Kohen Kook. He has a name. What do people call a person that looks at other Jews like that? A kofir. Right. And he's called a kofir. And Rav Kook is called a kofir. It's so wild that there's still, not many, but a few Jews left that still actually look at a picture of Rav Kook and brush him off as like, he was so off. He was so off. Sorry?
If they heard of him also.
Yeah. Right, but here in Eretz Yisrael I'm saying there's even a little bit of that. Rav Kook looked at this concept of Bekida and Zechira, and he understood this is exactly what's happening in the Am, that which is going to lead the way of coming back and starting the process will look like those that you would never, rightfully so, eat in their houses, because it's not kosher. Ken? If it's more about last week, I don't want to...
No, just it's a basic, if you cover this, it doesn't what does he base why do you call it dafka kida? Is it something when Muslim Lashon and he just chooses those 2 terms?
Betach, no, that's very much because of pakod pakadati, because all the lashonot of pakod that's been used towards the end of Sefer Bereshit and the beginning of Sefer Shmot, and there's many other references. Remember, pakod pakati etchem is key word that it's time for the Geulah to come out of Mitzrayim. Who says that? Who makes them swear that when they hear that word, Yosef HaTzadik? He makes them swear that when you hear that lashon of Pkida, understand that's the beginning of leaving Mitzrayim.
Why is he kosher to the Pasuk in Micha? Specifically,
why I don't want to get into this, because I want to make sure that as it is, this language here is all these musagim are very repetitive, and we're trying just to get to Lemaisa, to understand our job here right now today, Le'end of Cheshvan Tafshin Pei Dalet, to understand our job right now, to figure out what it is we're trying to do here, how are we living our lives over here. If I remember correctly, the last thing that we left off on was basically on Daf Pei Chet. It's the 3rd page that you have in front of you. Daf Pei Chet. And on Daf Pei Chet, after we quoted the rest of that Ramchal, we were learning, as Rav Sasson said over here, Mevu'ar she'azchira hu inyan hidgalut Hashem bebehirut. How do I know that I'm entering the second shlav of Geula? You won't have the question, how do I know that I'm here? Meaning, it'll be bahir, it'll be behirut, it'll be clear. You won't have the question. I won't have a question. Well, how do I know that I've arrived? Well, if you've arrived, you wouldn't have that question. Nachon? It's almost like asking, how do I know that we're sitting around a table and there's a red tablecloth on here? Because it is. Do you understand? What's the question that we still have regarding Geulah, regarding redemption? Redemption, where does the question come in place? Why is it a question if we're in the process of Geulah or not? Why is that even a question if we've come back to Eretz Yisrael and something that's never happened in thousands of years, and we were rebuilding the land, and we have a Jewish army, and there's more Talmud Torah in Eretz Yisrael than there's ever been in the history of the Jewish history of the planet Earth. So why isn't it Bahir? Why isn't it Barur? Why is it not Barur to us?
How could we have suffering all this death?
Because how could it be that since Hashem gave us this gift of 1967, much more than 1947, how could it be that Hashem gave us this gift, this miraculous gift called 1967, we've kind of been like juggling it like a hot potato since then? How could that, if it's not clear to us why we're back here and that this is part of what we've been dreaming of, how could it be that we've been mamish messing around since 1967? And I shared in Shul on Shabbos that at the absolutely incredibly inspiring event that Yishai helped put together on Thursday night in Hebron, Rav Dov Lior spoke over there, and he said some very chazak words, very, very heavy words of cheshbon nefesh, of having to do a real accounting of our souls, kind of saying the same thing. He's like, why does it seem that we have so much pain still? Why do we have so much balagan since it seems the Pekida took place? Right? Since the first shlav has taken place, why does it seem like we still have so much balagan and so much tzarot? How could it be? There's so many Shiva houses. Ech ze yachol liot? How could it be? How could it be that when I drive to Hebron, I have to, make sure the guy, we're armed, look around. How could it be after 1967 that there's not a behirut, this clarity, the behirut of dat, the clarity that's amongst us? I'm not going to go the way that he took it. It was very heavy words, very harsh words. But I'm going to say al pi our learning. It's because the second shlav, which is called Zechira, represents a different world. The shlav of Geulah, of Zechira, is what we call Behirut Hadat, clarity, crystal clear. When things are crystal clear, based on the way that I'm learning Torah, based on the way that I'm observing Torah and mitzvahs, the manner in which I choose to set up shop here. Something else. I'm going to let him speak much more today than me, hopefully. Rav Sasson says again over here, Mevu'ar she'azchira in the middle of Pechet. Mevu'ar she'azchira hi inyan hitgalut Hashem bibehirut she'akiru hakol malchuto ve'shiltono ve'yofia ha'or ba'asaga me'ira. That it'll be clear to every single person, especially those that are running the show and calling the shots on the military fronts, that everything here is Yad Hashem. It's a clear Hashem action. That was not at all the case in 1967, and it has not been the case since then. And that's hard for us to hear and swallow and digest, because many of us grew up as a lot of these heroic military figures as heroes in our lives. But you grow up a little bit and you start to realize they are heroes of a world called Kochi ve'otzem yadi. They are heroes of a word that's saying, look at us. It's all nationalism. It's just the strength of the Jewish warrior. Hashem, whatever, he checked out in 1939. That's the kav zchut I have on these figures that played this role. They couldn't relate to God. They couldn't relate to God. They didn't grow up like this. They were in survival mode. Rav Kook saw these people. He understood this is what they were about. And as much as he loved them and accepted them for being part of Am Yisrael, it is the greatest mistake in the world to think that Rav Kook held of these people to be anything more than tinokot shenishbu. I'm waiting for the sefer to come out that's going to make Rav Kook sound like the most Haredi fanatic, and it's very easy. It's actually very, very easy to take Rav Kook's words. I mean, I don't think we should do it, but I'm saying it's very easy to take Rav Kook, and we have a few pieces here, to take Rav Kook and the way that he looked at the world, and to say that even the Dati Lumi world, because Mechila, some of it is, we're all beautiful, it's still so shallow. Without the injection of the Baal Shem Tov, that world it's so shallow. I'm a product of it. No? I come from it. It's so shallow. It's missing the pnimi of what the words are all about. So now look how he develops this. Le'or dvarim elu muvan heitev seder ha'geula. In light of what we just said, what the Ramchal was teaching us, the order of redemption is clear. Shehekel echel betikun hachitzoniyut. It began with fixing the outside. The outside. But ve'adayin anu bivchinat ki yeshev b'choshech. But we're still going to Shiva houses after Shiva house. Choshech. במובן שאין הדבר מגיע להשגה ובהירות דעת Hashem, and what this really is saying is that we still haven't reached the place where the clarity of the da'at of Hashem is what's really permeating the air in Eretz HaKodesh and the people in Eretz HaKodesh. Why? כי בהירות הדעת שייכת להופעת אור הפנימיות, אור התורה. This level of clarity of mind, of knowledge, is shayach to the appearance of the light of Pnimius, the light of the Torah. שהוא השפע שיאיר בגילוי וימלא את הארץ דעה. This abundance of light will illuminate in a revealed manner the whole land with da'at Hashem. And that is why I'm very optimistic, because I believe that where we're at now has never been before either. Ever. Not that we haven't conquered it yet, it's not fully done yet. But the da'at that Hashem is running the show, and this is all Leman Shmo Be'ava, is much stronger than it ever was. Forget the people, the puppets that are so-called elected and talking, and they're the ones making statements. They'll probably be the last ones. The day Bibi says, the current prime minister doesn't end the speech as a political statement. Every time you'll see this, he'll say Ube'ezrat Hashem, after he says for everything. Now at the end, Be'ezrat Hashem Nenatzach, the day that becomes the ruach of the words of the leader of the people of Israel from the beginning, and you see it's mamash dvarim from inside out, then we'll be on the right path. But that's the last circle. The the inner circle, is much more there than it's ever been. And this is happening, I see it every single day. This ruach of da'at Hashem and a pnimi level, that this is all, but why are we fighting? Why are we doing this? What is this whole story, Bichlal? All ruach in da'at Hashem, which brings us to something that we brought up last week in Shir, in the men's Shir, is that after the Shoah, everyone stopped talking to Hashem. It was too hard to talk to Hashem. What's crazy is that after this I don't like the word Shoah used over here for many reasons, but after this pogrom, after this Chilul Hashem Me'in Kamo in Eretz Yisrael, no one's running away from Hashem. Everyone's running to Hashem. It's a very different experience going on over here right now. And you know what the conversation kind of sounds like? Everyone's running to Hashem, and basically those that are saying, Hashem Yisbarach, how could this have happened? Everyone with a half of a brain hears back the following imagery. Hashem looks at us, he says, you tell me how this could have happened. You're smart enough to realize how this could have happened. This is not a deep sugya. This is not a deep sugya. You tell me how this could have happened. Very clear. Tamantem rosh b'chol, you put your head in the sand. Which is leading people to even feel, I need to be closer to the ruach pnimi, the zechira level of geula, for all the reasons in the world, for all the clear reasons in the world. Back inside the text, ulefichach, אף שנעשו מעשים כבירים ועצומים בבחינת בניין החיצוניות, שקמנו ממוות לחיים, ומאפר השואה לעם היושב בארצו המשגשגת, מכל מקום הדעת לא באה בבהירות לעם, והוא איננו משיג את טיב המעשה הגדול אשר עשה השם עמו, להשיבו ולחדש ימיו כקדם. What Rav Sasson just said over here is very important for us. He says, although tremendous, huge things have been happening, have been taking place on the outside, meaning on a physical level, look at what the land looked like and look at what the people looked like. Look at the Nebuch Jew in the ghetto, and now look at him just a few years after and since then. It's true. The binyan of the Haaretz has never looked more beautiful. The binyan of it, right? The building of it, the actual, what it looks like. And to take people that were mamish dust and ashes and then make them into people that are now leading tremendous innovators in all worlds of commerce and whatnot. That's all true. But there's been something that's missing along the way. What's been missing along the way, you'll have to learn again Ma'amar Ador for Rav Kook to explain to us what's missing along the way. What's missing along the way is the da'at of how could it be that people that were so low are so big. Ech ze achol liot. How did it happen? How is it possible for people that were mamish dust and ashes to watch their parents go into gas chambers? How could it be that these same people did what they did? What are they made out of? They're not just made out of this physical strength of like just warrior, like I'm gonna my greatest revenge is like I'm gonna keep on living, because that's not it. The whole notion of that we're a godly people, we're a spiritual entity, wasn't the main. It was never the main focus since the beginning of the Pekidah, which is okay because there was the first shlav. From Simchat Torah on, to ignore that piece is a churban. It is the greatest disgrace in the world to think that anything that has to do with Zionism or national pride isn't a spiritual force, is a busha v'cherpa. It's dangerous. At this shlav, it's already dangerous. 75 years, this is what we got to do. Still angry at God, Auschwitz, all those things, pseudo. And from this shlav on, it's again, there is no way you can give over to your children the point of why you brought them here and raised them here without this being the main focus. And the Pekida, the national pride on a chitzoni level, the secondary focus. It won't work. It stopped working really about 10 or 15 years ago. That's the truth, meaning giving it over to the next generation, because you have the most beautiful neshamas that are willing to get mamish, be on the front lines, and that grew up in frum homes, and they checked out of anything that's to do with religion, because it was all, the way it was given over was all chitzoni, because the energy was put into settling the land and building the land. That's what, for whatever the reason is, that's what needed to be. In order to actually be alive and be here in the structure. Zeo, that period is ended. That was the first 75 years. Now, if we want to really feel like we're part of the zechira, of the spiritual side of this pnimi force of geula, now that those examples of why I had to stay away from Hashem because it was too hard to be too close, is a kvar lo oved. There are individuals that are still stuck in this process, and one of them, I don't know if you saw this, but it really, really pierced my soul. There was one katava that they've been doing about the Yechida for Ziui Chalalim in the army, the unit that identifies bodies. And these are all mamish tzaddikim that are busy from morning to night without end on identifying bodies. And it's an avoda, it's a melacha that the human mind can't...
Some of them are from our community.
Nachon? Some of them live right here. The katava that I'm speaking about, it has nothing to do with anyone from here. It's a group of people that are not from this world. The level of what they have to do, their dedication is something that we can't understand, we can't fathom. Those that are busy doing that, so I'll tell you about one of them, is a Rav, that he joined this Yechida, and he's busy, and somehow, which I don't understand how they do this, they actually stop for Shachris, Mincha, and Maariv. But one of the Rebbeim pretended that he didn't hear that they're calling for a minyan, and he keeps on working. He just doesn't stop. So one of the guys there said to him, "Listen, why don't you come? Why don't why don't you come here and join the minyan? So he said, לא, אני ואלוקים עוד לא מוכנים לדבר. בסדר. That's one person that's inside the avoda, he has not the heter, I don't know what you want to call it, like that's still, but we're not there. We're not there. We're hopefully, we're Zechira Jews. And our job now, hitnari me'afar Kumi, to arise from the dust and really go inside this in a very profound way, in order, like he said in the last line, to be masig, to grasp the real goodness of the whole action of Pekida. So that we could actually, understand what's happened to us in the last 75, 80 years as a people? Have we really internalized it? You see, if we would really internalize what happened to us in the last 75 years, there's no way that we could continue anything in our lives the same anymore. Like if we really understood what's taken place to this to this people. But like Rav Drukman said, the problem is that kimat all of us are born into a world that already has Eretz Yisrael, that already has the country, that already has everything built up, that has the infrastructure there. So we're not able to understand the actual the massiveness of the experience of what Am Yisrael has been going through. But now we have to again. We have to realize this. We have to understand it. V'lachen, bottom of Pechet, kamim bnei Adam, people are getting up, ubidimyonot shav, v'chezyonot polchim, ba'im lesartet et tkumatenu, kedavar she'en bo neshama v'ruach, el aguf levado ve'am kechol hagoyim. Don't turn the page just of yet, because of the footnote that we're going to see in a second. What did he say over here? You have people that arise, and dimyonot shav, false illusions, chezyonot polchim. That means they're delusional, basically. And they're trying to describe and to draw up an explanation for our tkuma, for our arising, for our getting up, as something that doesn't have spirit and soul, just a thing that's a body. It's just about the heroic nature of man that wants to stay alive. And that's a big, big sakana. It's a very, very dangerous thing, and that's been a lot of the voice in the country for the last 75 years. You realize that? It's hard for me to say this because people that, huge giburim fell, that lived like this, that acted like this, it's not a taina on them. Eliyahu Navi is going to have to explain to us how God expected us to still feel close to him after the Shoah. That's the situation, but we're far from that tkufa, and us now is, the avoda is ruach, is the ruach, is the spirit. Everywhere. It's not, again, the fact that the davening here is an exception doesn't bring me any simcha. It's not a happy thing. That's not something that I'm proud of. It's something I'm actually embarrassed of. Very. It's not a thing that makes me proud. You understand what I just said? No. Not so much? How do I explain this?
It should be everywhere. It should be everywhere.
You want to be the rule and not the exception.
How could it be? It could be because we just don't have the language yet. We don't have even Rabbanim don't have this language. It hasn't yet sunk in that the spiritual side is not a luxury. It's not that. It hasn't sunk in yet, and it's a language. It's a language that has to permeate the world of yeshivas that are producing Rabbanim.
You have said until Simchat Torah, you've said it's a luxury we're sitting here learning payments. It's a luxury. That's been your language. It's something you said, and now you're saying it's not a luxury. You're realizing it's not a luxury.
Yeah, it's bichlal not a luxury. No, yeah, mama.
You said, Baruch Hashem, we have the schut to learn between you. This hasn't been history until now. You said that.
Yeah, but I never said about the learning that it was a luxury. I'm saying that I think I said exactly the opposite. Actually, I think what I meant to say, at least.
Hashem, that we have the luxury of finally sitting and learning Pnimius on a Sunday morning. Until now, I don't know if everyone's had that. But now you're saying maybe Dafka October 7th has changed that.
Yeah, I'm just, if that's what anyone understood from what I said, then I take it back, because my whole, I want to make it clear. I never felt like it was a luxury. I felt from the moment that we, I don't know, started learning that it's a hora'at sha'ah. Oh, for sure, a schut doesn't mean a luxury. A schut can also be a chiyuv. I have the privilege of doing something that I need to do.
It's a necessity.
Necessity.
I don't know if
Yeah.
you phrased it like that.
No, and by so it's good.
Before it, this is saying that things are changing.
It's not, and even if it is a bikurat, that's totally okay. But it's good to raise it up to make it to clarify. About kol b'seder gamur. This is very important. That's how you form a gemara. No, it's not how gemara is formed. You know, this is the time that we're in now. I don't know. I don't know. I can't imagine anyone that's in tune with the pulse of Nishmat Am Yisrael right now, that anyone here or any place that could relate to the way that they learn Torah, davened, experienced life, the same sense on any level. And we, you know, we're trying here with these 6 families, with these giborim and giborot that they've these precious families that have come to the community to join the machon and have a besora, and each of them is a pearl. It's a very humbling experience, but I'm saying that it's across the board. It has to be across the board. What that exactly is, what that language exactly is, it has to daven all day long to get behirut adat, that it should be clear what it sounds like. We have access to all the svarim apnimiyim, but to extract from it exactly what it needs to sound like for us, we have to take advantage of everything. I personally feel that the way that Rav Reuven Sasson, is presenting Rav Kook for our door is what this door needs. I very strongly do. Now, the footnote that we have here is that he brings Rav Kook that maybe many of us didn't learn. Beinyan zeh, look at footnote Yud Zayin on the bottom. Beinyan zeh ka'av Rav Kook zatzal me'od. Rav Kook was in a lot of pain. V'kach katav bepinkasav. This is what he wrote in the Pinkasim. Now, do you know what the Pinkasim are? What's a Pinkas? It's like a diary, right? The Pinkasim were not stuff that were released by the older generation of Rav Kook's students. This was later. This was basically a bunch of manuscripts that were found much later. When I was in yeshiva in Ramat Gan, the chevra there sitting next to me, we got hold of it, and we're learning and we're working it and publishing it. And these are like the inside, what was going on in Rav Kook's heart, that for whatever the reason was, people back then either didn't have access to it or didn't find it worthy that this should be out there in the world. But now it's out there in the world. And what did Rav Kook really think about when he saw people that are just thinking guf, 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 and not ruach, ruach, ruach? כך כתב בפנקסיו, מהו סוד צערי הגדול שבשבילו אני סובל כל כך מכאובי נפש וגוף? What is the secret of the tremendous pain for which I am suffering, tremendously suffering, both spiritually and physically? שבגינו הנני מוזר לאחי ונוכרי לבני אמי. A pain for which I am strange to my brethren, and I am like a nochri, a foreigner to the sons of my mother. זהו הצער הגדול של מיעוט כבוד שמיים של שכחת שם השם. It's the pain over the belittling of the kavod shamayim and forgetting the name of Hashem. ביותר מכל, continue with the footnote on פ"ט, מדאיבני העניין של שכחת שם השם אלוקי ישראל, you have it? אבינו מעולם ועד עולם, בעצמותה של ההתעוררות הגדולה אשר לתחייה הלאומית. He's saying there's a tchiya leomit. Tchiya leomit means a resurrection, a national resurrection, right? But what's killing him and what's burning inside of him, deep inside, he doesn't say this to people that he meets, but he's saying, want to know what's going on inside my kishkas? It's flipping over. That I see all this happening, and I see that Shem Hashem is not part of what's happening over here. This is Rav Kook speaking. איני יכול לדרוש ולטעון במליצות מוגבלות על דבר שמירת הדת וכיוצא בה. I can't come and start darshaning here that people, meaning the frum attack won't work either, he's saying. It's not going to work either. Nishmati tzoeket bekirbi, my soul is screaming in my midst. Ruchi nohem ka'ari, my spirit is roaring like a lion. Oi labanim השוכחים את אביהם. V'kol koreh mimromim, and a voice then comes back from above and says, Oi lo la'av shebanav shachachuhu. This is so deep. Is on the one hand, Oy vey to children that forgot Tati, and on the other hand, Oy vey to Tati whose sons forgot him. Umima'amakei seter chevyon ruach tzach noshev, and I'm just gonna, it's a very deep phrase in Hebrew, but it really means it's like from the depth, the hidden places of the character of a spirit that's blowing in the wind. The kol d'mamad dakan ishma, but within all that midst of all the balagan of, wow, how could a father produce sons that forget him, and how could sons forget their father? There's an underlying voice beneath it all. And what's that voice? Haben yakir li Ephraim im yeled shashuim. Ki midei dabri bo zachor askareno od, al ken hamu me'aylo, rachem arachamenu ne'um Hashem. He's saying, but you know what? That's what it looks like on the outside. On the outside, it looks like the people that are in front of me are kofrim that forgot everything and aren't bringing Hashem into the picture. And when I look at it, it drives me crazy. It doesn't let me sleep at night. It gives me such tremendous pain. And it's true. Don't pretend that it's not true. It's true, and it's not holy. And it's not the way of Yidden. It's not our way. It's true. That's what's in front of us. This is not something we should adopt. This is not a shita that we should hold on ourselves and say, this is what it means. This is the picture. This defines the Jewish people. You know why? Because that ruach is still some kind of a scent throughout the country till today, till this minute. Even right now, people that are on the level of decision making for the sake of the Jewish people are still plagued by this. I'm not talking about left wing. I'm talking about actually right wing. They're still plagued by this. But then he says, but I hear beyond. I have to look beyond. And beyond all this, I hear what we say in Rosh Hashanah. Haben yakir li Ephraim yeled shashuim ki midei dabri bo zachor askareno od. Really, it's still there. Somewhere deep inside, deep inside, it's still there. Someone asked me after Shir, at one of the Shiurim recently, how should they love Ehud Barak? That was the question. So it's easy to just put them all in Erev Rav categories. But that's an easy thing. Rav Kook could have put all of them into Erev Rav categories. So unless you're learning Pnimius, unless you're doing Hitbodedut, unless you're operating from inside out, unless your davening leaves you with the place of a tear every time you daven, unless the way that you give over to your child a mitzvah and you feel that at this moment there's an appearance of godliness in the moment, it's very hard to do this real deep work of the love that needs to go up a notch too, up many notches. It's very hard. But Rav Kook had a bitachon. He was certain about something. Ubitachon adir holech umitgaber bi bekirbi. I have this tremendous confidence that's growing and getting stronger in my midst. Shekol ele hakoneniyot haolchot v'naasot ba'olam ube'olamenu hapnimi kulan hinan he'arot mofiot lichvod Hashem v'siguv shmo. Don't ask me how, but I feel like in the bigger picture of things, the result, the zechira, the next shlav of the Geulah, from all of this, something huge which will bring Kvod Shamayim will appear from it. I can't explain. He's saying it's not clear. It's a very mitachat l'shetach happening. To write them all off will leave the Jew in galut permanently. And it would be the easiest thing to write them all off. It's so easy. Nachon? It's so easy to write them all off. Easy. Mazet, this is kfira, this is avodah zarah, this is nothing. To be able to look at them and say, within, deep in their midst, there's actually, I only experienced this once in my life. I think I shared it with you. There was a guy I used to visit in the hospital in LA when I was working in Cedar Sinai. I think I shared this with you, that every time I walked in, he started screaming at me and cursing at me. An old Jew. Do any of you remember this story? I forgot Abe. His name was Abe. He's definitely not in the world. He was like 90, 25 years ago. Yeah, I don't know, maybe he is in the world, but I don't think he is. So every time I walked in, he would start screaming and he threw something at me once. Like, all I did was I knocked, "Hi, my name is Shlomo. I'm working in the clergy, and I wanted to come and see if you," scream, cursing, nivel pen, words I was 18, words I never heard before, mamash. And then one time when I saw it's his name on the list of newly admitted Jewish patients before walking in, I walked in and I was like, "Okay, just go sleep." I said, "Abe, I know you don't want me to be here, but I'm still here if you need anything." He says, "Saul, come in. Solomon, come in." So he says, "Do you know why I've tried to do every single Avera in my life? I'll tell you why. And why people like you make me sick." He actually, I remember, he told me he lived on the street where my father was the chazan in Los Angeles. The first place we were in the early 80s, Martel Avenue, mamash, right next to the shul called Shai Tefillah. And he said to me that when he was in World War II fighting in the Pacific jungles, and then he came back, he didn't grow up religious or anything, but he made it out of the war, and it was Rosh Hashanah, and he wanted to, give thanks to God that all of his friends were killed, but he wasn't killed. So he wanted to come inside the temple. And they didn't let him in because he didn't have a ticket. So he said to himself, if this is what it means to be a Jew, not only do I not want to have anything to do with this, I'm going to do everything against this. And anything he remembered from Cheder, he dafka went anti. So if you can believe that if that's where some of the ruach of the anti is coming from, and understand that no one yet really gave them a Shabbos that they need, you don't write them off. You believe that deep down inside, there's something pnimi going on inside that needs to be touched. They're burning for years, and that's passed on to the next generation. But it's there. It's still there. It has to be. It has to be still there. But it takes a lot of living pnimius, like a person like Rav Kook, to look at people like that. It's like they told us when we first started learning smicha, they said the easiest thing in the world is to passel something, to say it's asur. That's the easiest thing. But Chazal always say, koach dehetera adifa, which means that the koach, the strength, to find a heter for something is always looked at greater, if you could give it a kosher heter. Not stam blow off a heter, but mamish, like, for real. Rav Kook is looking at these people that are building up the land, and he's like, remember, don't think he's still not in pain. He's still in such tremendous pain, and he's burning inside, and he feels like a foreigner to everyone that's around him. He feels like a foreigner amongst the frum chevra, because they look at him and they say, "You're a kofer," and he feels like a foreigner amongst the actual kofrim because he's an Eved Hashem, because he's actually an Eved Hashem. And then he starts writing in Hebrew that no one understands, so he's bichlal isolated from everybody in the world, right? I just want to read these words again, the end of this footnote. ביטחון אדיר הולך ומתגבר בקרבי שכל אלה הכונניות ההולכות ונעשות בעולם ובעולמנו הפנימי, כולן הינן הערות מופיעות לכבוד השם וסיגוב שמו, שיזרח בהודו ויגלה ויראה עלינו בכל הדרת קודשו. There will come a time that it will be clear to every single person that this was all about Hashem. It always was and it always will be. Uvau avdim, we all know the nigun, but what does it actually mean? What's ovdim? All the lost ones. Uvau avdim me'eretz Ashur, and nidachim, the abes of the world, the nidachim. Nidach means the ones that felt rejected, the ones that felt pushed away, because they went to go look for God by people who themselves have no idea what it's all about, but are, so to speak, representing God. Nidachim. Anidachim will come back me'eretz Mitzrayim. V'yishtachavu LaHashem bar HaKodesh b'Yerushalayim b'mera b'yameinu amen. And then you go back to the top of this page of Peitet, the Kol Ze Kalil Yachalof Kitavo Chochma Belev Ha'am. All of this just goof. Army. It's all the strength of the Mefaked. The strength of Mefaked will be there forever. The strongest Mefaked is the one that goes out B'Shem Hashem Tzvakot, like we're seeing now. Have you seen these pieces of footage of the Chayalim going out to war and doing Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shamayim? Again, give me the Kohen Gadol doing Avodah and the Kodesh Kodashim, or give me this for my eyes. I don't know what I can't imagine it. I would take these Chayalim going out to war and doing it Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shamayim. And it's not just one video, it's so many of them. That's what I feel, that's what I want to stress now. Time is of the essence. It's in the air now. It's happening now. Right now, this Ruach, this new spirit that understands Lo b'chai v'lo b'koach, ki im beruchi amar Hashem tzvakot. All these types of Torahs, all these types of thoughts and ideas, we're seeing it in front of us. It's still, and the media, it's the last, like that's the last battle. It's the tuma of the people that are speaking about Am Yisrael or the war. It's still chitzoni. It's still outside stuff. It's still crazy. It's still the outside. But everyone else, if you ignore that ring and you go into the inside, there's a hitzgalut of Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shamayim. Now, it's not, one of the videos of Hanan that's going around now is him playing and visiting a bunch of people that were injured that lost legs. Now, where did they? Those aren't soldiers, most of them. Where did they lose their legs? At the rave. Do you saw that half of them are wearing kippas right now? And that they're covering their eyes, davening while he's singing Stomet. Something bigger than us. It's something greater than that can be taught by a human being is being taught and given over to this next door. And that's what he's saying over here, that this could that whole ruach that worked for 75 years can just yachalof. Ki tavo chochma belev ha'am. Wisdom will come to the heart of the Am. This is what the Mea Shiloach calls. It's one of my favorite terms of the Mea Shiloach. When it comes to wisdom, he says, eventually, in the time of Mashiach, everyone will operate al pi binat halev. Wisdom of the heart. It's the dat of the heart. That the heart knows something that doesn't know it because someone explained to them that 2 + 2 is 4. Limud pnimius is not, we could learn all the terminology and see how did the Arizal, how did Rabbi Nachman understand this concept, because he learned it from the Arizal. The Arizal based it on something he saw in the Idra Is by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai obviously saw it because he was learning by someone, by Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva obviously, meaning we could do all that, but that would just give us historical context of how a text came out to be. It used to be that was the most important way of showing that the Torah is emes. That ain't working for the next generation. The way to show that the Torah is emes in this generation, the way to show that the Torah is true for the next generation, is by accessing people to their own hearts that know all of this stuff in an infinitely more profound way than any text could ever take you to. But if you yourself don't believe that you're connected to it, you can't give that over to anybody. And we have professors of Jewish mysticism. That's the outside stuff. Talking about the inside stuff. Tavo chochma belev ha'am. We'll end with this. V'dat lenafshenu yun'am. There'll be a pleasant dat that comes down to our souls. Le'akir et shem Hashem meforash. Whatever that means. To actually recognize and know the real name of God clearly. Just like the Kohen Gadol would say Shem Hashem meforash in the Kodesh HaKodeshim, God's actual name. Bifchinat hazchira. This is the second level of Geula, the zechira. V'hadat et Hashem. Listen, when did Geula begin in Mitzrayim? In actual Egypt, what did we learn? Did they understand what they were crying out to? They didn't understand it, Bichlal, but they allowed themselves to roar. Vayizaku. Vatal shavatam el Elokim, vayeda Elokim. And then Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, "V'gam ani shamati et na'akat b'nei Yisrael." In Parashat Vayera, he says, when they were screaming and crying, they themselves didn't understand. I heard that. They didn't even understand what they were doing, but I heard what they were doing. So that first level of the Geulah, it's not really that I understand it all, but it just happens, right? Just like it's been happening till now. But there will be a time where I actually will understand the Ze'akah. I will understand it all. There'll be a da'at of Hashem in my actions. Like he says over here, Kol ze yikre al yedei gilui pnimiyut haTorah. All of this will happen with the revelation of pnimiyus haTorah. The revelation of pnimiyut haTorah. Let me ask you, what's pnimiyus haTorah? Don't be embarrassed to say what you may think it is. When I say pnimiyus haTorah, what is it? What is pnimiyus haTorah to you? Chavra, just the soul. Okay, the soul of the Torah.
White spaces.
White spaces. What else? I'm looking for something much less deep right now. Application. What else? Say a name of a sefer. Zohar. What else? Connection. That's still too deep. I want less deep. Too deep. I want texts right now. I'm going Baal Shem Tov. What else? Rabbi Nachman. What else? Rav Kook.
Feeling Hashem's love.
Too deep, Marilyn. We're not. I'm talking. I'm obviously all those. You understand that? Yes. I'm trying to show you something. What else? What else would you say Pnimiyus HaTorah is? What? Ramchal. Who else? Maharal. For sure. Kli Yakar, Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Gra, Machshava. But I want to say now things that you probably wouldn't say. Rashi. Masechet Brachot. Mishnah Baba Kama. See, all those things, all of the explanations, like the hard stuff is there. That's all true. There is no section of Torah that doesn't fall under Pnimiyus HaTorah. Do you understand? It's just that certain areas, certain tzaddikim spoke about it much more begalui, like the Baal Shem Tov, like the Alter Rebbe, like Rav Kook, like the Maharal, like the Gra, like the Arizal. But essentially, if everything is coming from the word of Hashem, how could something not be Pnimiyus HaTorah? It's just a shaila of how you're learning it, and for what purpose are you learning?
It's for your head or it's for your heart?
Nachon. Gilui. So he says over here, all of this will happen. Kol ze yikre, meaning this shift of clarity. Kol ze yikre al yedei gilui pnimiyut haTorah, shehi rucha de malka de Mashiach, which is the spirit of Melech HaMashiach. ויקוים בנו הכתוב, העם ההולכים בחושך ראו אור גדול. And then there's another pasuk from Yeshaya that he brings. The people that go in darkness will see a great light. That even within the darkness that we're in right now, we will see a huge great light. Now there's an amazing footnote on the bottom. If you should take this home with you, because what Rav Kook says over here also describes everything we said in his words. You should look at it yourself and even ask someone if there's some words here that you don't understand. I didn't think we would get to it anyway, so it's not that crucial to continue for our learning. But this is, we have a lot of lamaisa to do. Like right now, it's easy to think a bit more about Afrashat Chala because we're so conscious of the fact that perhaps when I am mechaven right now to the Afrashat Chala, then maybe this can help one of the chatufot to be able to come back home and do Afrashat Chala by next Shabbos, right? But living Pnimiyus HaTorah is basically a life that I don't wait for tragedies to turn on that button. It's the way that I naturally interact with Yiddishkeit. It's the norm. It's not the exception. That's what the learning of Pnimiyus is all about. And Alavai, we should have the. Again, now I'm going to be very careful. We should have the schut, which is a chiyuv, to learn it for the rest of our lives and justify our existence here in Eretz Yisrael in this time in life. And Halavai, All our tefillahs should be for shmirah, for the tzaddikim and tzaddikot that are allowing us to sit here and learn like this. If they weren't there, we wouldn't be able to do this, because the neighbors that live right over here, these Amalekites that live right over here, wouldn't allow us to sit and learn this Torah. But the shluchim of Hashem, the shluchim of Am Yisrael right now, with their koach and the ozen and gvura, Be'ezrat Hashem, Hashem should give them all the strength in the world to continue doing their job faithfully, and it should be enough of all this Torah. And Shalom Al Yisrael. Right.